Today on Official Observations, we're looking at the man currently occupying 10 Downing Street. But we're not talking about his policies or his polling. We're going back to the courtroom. Before he was the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer was a star of the bar. Depending on who you ask, he was either a champion of the underdog or a calculated technocrat with an eye on the establishment. Let's unpack the legal life of Keir Starmer. Part 1. The McLibel Maverick. Long before the suits and the staged press conferences, Starmer was a radical defence lawyer at Doughty Street Chambers. He made his name not by prosecuting criminals, but by defending people against the state and giant corporations. The case that put him on the map? The infamous McLibel trial. He provided pro bono legal advice to two activists, Helen Steele and David Morris, who were sued by McDonald's for a pamphlet. It became the longest-running libel case in English history. Starmer took the fight all the way to the European Court of Human Rights, eventually proving that the UK's libel laws were, frankly, stacked against the little guy. He also spent years travelling to the Caribbean and Africa to challenge the mandatory death penalty. In the 90s and early 2000s, Starmer was the guy you called if you wanted to sue the government, not join it. Part 2. The poacher turns gamekeeper. In 2008, the legal world was shocked when Starmer was named Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP, the head of the Crown Prosecution Service. This was the poacher turned gamekeeper moment and should have been a clear warning sign to anyone assessing how ambitious Keir might be. As DPP, he had some big wins. He oversaw the conviction of the killers of Stephen Lawrence, a landmark moment in British racial justice. He also went after MPs during the expenses scandal. But he also faced heat. He was at the helm during the decision not to prosecute the police officers involved in the death of Jean-Charles de Menezes, and later the Jimmy Savile scandal would become a political football, even though Starmer himself wasn't the reviewing lawyer on those specific files. Part 3. The austerity tightrope. A missed clue into the soul of a man with no permanent principles. Now, here is where it gets interesting. In 2010, the government changed. The Labour government that appointed him was out. The Cameron-Osborne coalition was in. This brought austerity. The CPS budget was slashed by about 25% over 4 years. Courts were closing. Staff were being let go. Many expected a man of Starmer's human rights pedigree to resign in protest. He didn't. Instead, he stayed and managed the decline. He introduced paperless hearings and digitized the service to save money. Critics say he presided over the dismantling of the justice system. Starmer's allies argue he stayed to protect the core mission from being completely gutted. What did the public miss in all of this? Simple. A supposed man of principle stayed on during some of the most severe cuts to the CPS in its history. Does that square with how he portrayed himself during the general election? Of course not. So what was the key takeaway from this? Also simple. Keir will do anything it takes to further his interests, even if it means working with a government who are your ideological opposites. This was a warning that we were looking at a man with no compass and no fixed ideals, something which is now causing many of his problems as he and his government struggle to please everyone and end up pleasing no one. Part 4. The pedigree and the Sir rumours. This leads us to some other spicy stuff. There's a persistent criticism that Starmer had no pedigree as a prosecuting barrister. And technically it's true. He spent his career in defence work. To many experienced prosecutors, he was an outsider, parachuted in as one of Tony's cronies, friends with Tony Blair's inner circle, and not much more. And then there's the knighthood. Starmer became Sir Keir in 2014. There have long been whispers, unproven, mind you, that he took the DPP job specifically as a stepping stone to a title and a political career. While it's traditional for outgoing DPPs to be knighted, his detractors point to it as proof of his establishment ambitions. Only a few select insiders pointed out that he seemed to be a man carefully pruning his CV for a run at number 10. Does this make Keir any worse than many other politicians of any given political party? Probably not. However, it does show that everyone missed some flashing red lights, which, if properly considered, would have cast a great deal of doubt on the quality of a future Prime Minister. Is there any good news in this? It's hard to say. But we can promise that we're here to keep a close eye on all future contenders for the country's top job. And our official observations will keep shining a light on facts and events that some people would rather keep buried. Stay sharp.